Joining me is Alan Moran, head of Regulation Economics, which studies the economics of green energy. Alan, great to catch up with you. How much taxpayer money do you think is used to prop up the renewable energy sector, especially wind and solar?
Well, the answer is it's about $7 billion. At least it was last time it was estimated by me for 2019. Presently, the government says it's going to be spending $22 billion between now and 2030. You can double that because that's the spend. It doesn't include the regulatory costs. Labour says it will spend even more, a little bit more, but then it's going to actually last through a whole lot of businesses into spending another $76 billion in terms of the cost to bring about renewables. Both parties have actually got the same kind of 2050 policy, that is net zero emissions, which is a charade, I suppose. But the 2030 policies, Labour is somewhat more aggressive in terms of bringing about renewables. Labour is talking about getting to about 82% renewable. Bear in mind, we're only about 27% at the present time. That includes hydro, as opposed to about 68% for the coalition. These are just fantasy numbers, but they are official policies. And compared to the numbers or the prices, the costs that the governments and the Labour Party is citing, these are just out of court of any realistic numbers. One study has been done by an energy consultancy called Global Rome, and they have estimated that if we do replace all the coal-fired power stations, which is policy for both parties, then we will need a lot of backup. Not only we've got to actually finance more wind power stations and more transmission, but we will need backup equivalent to 25 Snowy 2s. Just think about that, 25 Snowy 2s. That's a colossal amount of backup we need simply to keep the lights on, in addition to having more expensive power as a result of the policies. So, you can work out what that means. That means about $660 billion we've got to spend to get to replace the coal power station. So you can see, well, in the case of Labour, if you pro-rata that with their goals, it's about $540 billion they want to spend, and the coalition wants to spend about $450 billion. So they're both crucifying the nation in terms of their spends and in terms of replacing inefficient energy.
So, Alan, these are mind-numbing figures. This is a huge amount of money spent by the government to make us use essentially these people's products or their services. So how important is it to the green industry that Labor get elected?
Well, it's quite important. It certainly gives them a bit more of a lift because the coalition isn't going to be spending quite as much. So, they have got a lot of skin in this game because they've got to, filch money from the taxpayer and from the electricity consumer on the back of regulations. And Labour is giving them more. The Greens are giving them even more than that. So they are quite keen on pressing that, and not only pressing for getting Labour elected, but actually reformulating the Liberal policies to defend, who are defending what are extremely ambitious policies in the first place, and to going much further. Quite frankly, Andrew, there's a surrealistic nature about this debate, because the policies of both Labour and the coalition are to actually eradicate coal-fired power stations, and yet whenever anyone closes, they panic. Even today, Angus Taylor has announced that you need 5 years now notice before you can close a power station. It's 3.5 years already. He announced a $75 million new transmission business to shore up the grid for a wind-rich generation business. Every day there are more and more of these new requirements and new spending proposals put forward, all of which are dedicated and will inevitably bring about the demise of the efficient electricity industry, which we had until the subsidies started cutting out coal-fired power stations, and there is no possibility on the horizon of you mentioned, of nuclear power stations in any event. So, you know, we have a bilateral policy, in a sense, between the coalition
and Labour. They're almost as bad as each other. I think the only hope, though, Alan, the only hope, yes, all right, the Liberals are a little less worse than Labour, and the only hope is that one day they'll be quicker to come to their senses when it all falls, when it all hits the fan, so to speak. Alan Moran, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.